I was recently watching a video on the excellent Sincerely Elvis Presley channel, a channel that I strongly recommend you check out if you haven't already seen any of his videos. And Sean, the guy who runs the channel, he's been doing a series of videos looking at Elvis's 1970s output through his books, CDs, and LPs. Recently, he did a video on 1971, which he referred to as an overlooked year in Elvis's life, in his professional life. And I thought, hang on a minute, it depends on where you live, because in Japan, 1971 was the year when everything went mental. Now, in February 1971, That's the Way It Is came out in Japan, the movie and the LP. And that sparked off an incredibly productive year for Victor, the record company in Japan. The album went to #1 for 16 weeks. The movie is still shown sometimes in cinemas today. It's a really, really popular movie. And that year, 1971, Victor in Japan, they went on to release a further 11 albums. So that's 12 LPs in 1 year. Think about that. That's an average of 1 LP a month. It's almost FTD levels, isn't it? So yeah, it was a very busy time for Elvis Presley fans back then. So what we're going to do in this video is go through those albums, what was released in 1971. I don't have copies of all of them, but I'll show you what I've got. And I'll mention the other ones as we're going through. All right, so the first one was, of course, That's the Way It Is in February 1971. I'll show you a couple of less common LPs, less common variants, rather than the usual early pressing. This is a copy from 1981 on the Best Buy 2000 series. And this was the first time that the album came out in a single sleeve, as opposed to a gatefold with lots of pictures and lyrics and so on the inside. This picture here from On Tour, this one first appeared on the album covers from 1972. And there were a few other Elvis albums released in this Best Buy 2000 series. So that's that one. I've also got another one, which is actually a lot rarer. One of the rarest variants of That's the Way It Is, actually. It's this one here. Also came out around the same time, but this one was part of a box set of movie soundtracks. There were just two Elvis albums in there, this one plus Blue Hawaii. It's very easy to recognize this one if you do see it online, because it's all in Japanese on the back. And it also comes with the lyric sheet. So that was the first album of the year in February. And That's the Way It Is, the album, the success of That's the Way It Is, it actually sparked a renewed interest in Elvis's earlier albums. And a lot of them started appearing, the earlier albums started appearing for the first time on the Orange RCA label from spring of 1971. I'll show you one here. This is California Holiday. This particular copy was pressed in April 71. And just like the original album, it's in a gatefold sleeve. But the original came with 2 bonus photos. But what they did with the bonus photos with this reissue is they actually stuck them inside the gatefold cover. And on the inside back cover, you've got the lyrics, just like the original from '66. There is the label. And these orange pressings of these reissues, they're not easy to find. Some are easier than others, but a lot of them are very rare. They didn't sell in very large quantities, but as I say, That's the Way It Is. It did spark an interest in some of Elvis's earlier albums. The next new album from 1971 then was Elvis in Person. This was from April 1970. And like the original copies of That's the Way It Is, it initially came in a gatefold sleeve. Just very quickly show you some of the inside cover there. Then we had Elvis Country in May. I'll show you a more unusual copy. The original came in a gatefold sleeve. This is a later one from the mid-70s. by which time it was no longer in a gatefold sleeve. Album number 4, 5, and 6. That's what we're on now, right? Yeah, 4, 5, and 6 were 3 budget albums. We got Let's Be Friends, Almost in Love, and You'll Never Walk Alone. They were all released at the same time. So Victor were playing catch up, which partly explains why there were so many albums released in 1971. And all 3 albums looked a little bit like this, with red, white, and blue obi design. And just like this one, they all came in a gatefold sleeve. Shortly after Elvis died, all of the Camden releases were reissued in this series here with the yellow, black, and white obi. And all of these records have picture labels, which I've shown before. So that was 3 budget albums that came out. Although they weren't budget albums in Japan, they were regular priced albums on the RCA label. That was in July, and then in September we got the Love Letters album. Which also came in a gatefold sleeve. And look out for early copies of this album, because they originally came with an envelope, a love letter envelope addressed to Elvis. We then had, at the end of the year, it was especially busy. In October, we got The Wonderful World of Christmas, which has this different back cover. And this one, too, is a gatefold design with a personal message from Elvis at the bottom here. Merry Christmas to all the fans in Japan. Thank you, Elvis Presley. Then, in November, we got the box set, The Other Sides. Now, I'm going to show you my American copy of The Other Sides, because it has something that I just wanted to bring up as a talking point. So it's got this poster, and it's also got this something from Elvis's wardrobe. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm very suspicious of these little swatches of fabric that they put in these envelopes. I don't think that came from Elvis's clothing. Can you imagine Elvis wearing something with that design? And there's another reason why I'm suspicious, because if you look at this album on Discogs, you can see that there's a picture of the swatch, and it's the same design but a different color. And a third reason why I'm very suspicious is because this fabric is incredibly thin. It's too thin for any kind of clothing. My friend Adam thinks that maybe these swatches came from Elvis's curtains, which is a pretty good theory. But even that, they're even thinner than net curtains. I think what happened is they did use some of Elvis's garments, some of his actual clothing, in the early copies, but then the album sold very well, better than expected. So then they started cutting up any old fabric that they could get their hands on. So no idea where that came from, but I'm not betting it came from one of Elvis's items of clothing. Anyway, still, it's an interesting item. So then we're still at the end of 1971. We're still in November. That's when The Other Sides came out. Then we had this beauty from Japan. Its actual title is just Elvis Presley, but it's informally known as Panel Deluxe. I did a video all about this one, so I'll leave a link at the end of the video so you can check that out if you want to. Double album set. Then we had 2 more releases at the end of the year. They were both budget releases. We had the Come On Everybody album, which was released at the same time as I Got Lucky. And just as the previous 3 Camden albums, it was on the orange RCA label in a gatefold sleeve and priced at the standard regular price. Not a budget album. So there you go. Far from being an overlooked year, 1971 was actually Elvis's biggest year in Japan ever. He had some success in 61, 62 with Blue Hawaii. After 61, 62, you can start to see an increase in sales of the singles on albums from that point, but nothing like That's the Way It Is. And that would continue until and through Aloha. Before that, after that, things kind of settled down a little bit. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. And any questions or comments, as ever, please let me know. Thanks for watching. Cheers.